Act as best script write and change the script so it won't match with original one. Make it spin the content, and remove any channel name if there. Write the description of around 8,000 words, remove timestamps. 23. Sony A7V official reveals. Release date, price, and complete specifications. Drop. YouTube https www.youtube.com watch v.hegto3vixc transcript d.d. The tech world has waited a long time for Sony to move the Alpha series into its next form, and the wait is finally over. The brand new Sony A7V has arrived. It is the follow-up to the wildly popular A74, but calling it just an upgrade undersells what Sony has done here. The new model folds 3 years of sensor research, AI autofocus, and heat management work into a magnesium alloy shell that weighs less than many DSLR bodies from a decade ago. 030. In this long-form breakdown, we will explore everything that matters to United States buyers. We will look at build quality, sensor science, autofocus speed, low-light prowess, internal codecs, heat mitigation, battery endurance, connectivity, and of course, the all-important price-performance ratio. We will compare the camera to direct rivals from Canon and Nikon, WR52, and we will close with a realistic verdict on who should buy it at launch and who might be better off waiting for seasonal discounts. Why this camera matters in 2025? Mirrorless. Bodies are not rare. Almost every brand now sells dual-slot hybrids with internal 10-bit recording. Yet, the A7V sits at the crossing of several converging trends. ISO 1.14. The content creator economy demands gear that can pivot from vertical TikTok frames to cinematic short films without missing focus. Sports imaging now leans on AI tracking, because modern athletes can outrun a traditional contrast detect system every time. Corporate live streaming has moved from basic webcams to 4K USB streaming, forcing cameras to stay cool under studio lights for hours. INJO 137. Sony looked at all 3 shifts and built the A7V to answer them at once. The company calls it the most balanced alpha to date. And while marketing slogans rarely survive first contact with reality, this one lands closer to truth than hype. Body and build. Sony keeps the minimalist aesthetic, but makes 3 physical updates you will notice the first time you grip the camera. Deepened main grip, INJO 2, RO 1. Slightly thicker front ridge distributes weight more evenly across the fingertips. Long zooms feel stable without adding a cage or rail handle. Mode dial redesign. The upper dial now locks with a soft push instead of a hard lever. Gloved winter shooting is easier, and accidental bumps in a wedding aisle are less likely to switch. U out of manual mode. INJO 222. Weather sealing. Sony expands gasket coverage around the battery door, memory doors, and hot shoe edges. The company claims the A7V now matches the Alpha 1's splash resistance. We cannot lab verify every seam, but a 1-hour Chicago rain test left no moisture inside the body. Under the skin sits a 1-piece magnesium alloy cage, 2.47. Sony saved 9 green over the A74, which may sound trivial until you mount a 70 to 200mm f2.8 and carry it for an entire football game. The new 33-megapixel sensor resolution climbs only 1 megapixel from the previous model, but that spec sheet number does not reveal the real leap. Sony moves to a backside illuminated CMOS design with an improved copper wiring layout, 0310. That layout shortens the distance between photodiodes and the processing layer, pushing light collection efficiency up by a quoted 7%. In field shots, the change shows as cleaner blacks in ISO 6400 RAW files and as smoother gradients in ISO 2800 JPEGs. Dynamic range now hits 15 stops in laboratory conditions, 0332. Translating lab stops to real street photography is tricky, but here is a tangible benchmark. A sunset portrait shot at ISO 400 with a subject backlit against a bright skyline retains eyebrow detail without blowing out the sun's disk. Pulling shadows in Capture 1 reveals no magenta blotches, just gentle noise that feels filmic rather than electronic. Or 353. Color science moves closer to Sony's cinema line. Skin tones look less magenta than on the A7 III era and lean gently toward the neutral warmth found in Sony's FX6. If you shoot log, that subtle curve does not matter because you will grade anyway. If you shoot JPEG for speed, the shift means less time fixing complexions in Lightroom. 04.15. The Bion's XR engine and deep buffer. Sony pairs the sensor with the same dual-chip, Bion's XR processor stack found in the Alpha 1, though clocked. Slightly lower to manage thermals. The effect is most obvious in burst shooting. Lossless compressed RAW hits 10 frames per second with continuous autofocus. The buffer swallows roughly 1,000 JPEGs, or 238 lossless RAW files before slowdown on a fast V90 card. 0443. Clearing that buffer takes about 10 seconds when writing to a UHS-2 SD or 6 seconds if you step up to the new CF Express Type A card. Wedding shooters will appreciate that margin when confetti flies or the first kiss moment drags into multiple seconds. Autofuck AI animals and birds. Sony's marketing hammered one point at launch. AI tracking now works on humans, animals, and birds with equal reliability. 05.12. In practice, the new system uses a dedicated machine learning module already seeded with thousands of biometric patterns. You half-press the shutter, the camera locks onto a face, then stays glued, even if that subject ducks behind a tree and reappears. For wildlife, the hit rate approaches 90% on a fast 200 to 600mm zoom if you use the animal plus bird setting. 5.35. Canon's R5 still holds an edge on large mammals at distance, but the A7V wins on small birds darting across branches. For indoor sports, face and eye detection remains sticky under LED gym lighting where contrast detect systems often lose line. Video 4K 60p and 10-bit 42.2. On paper, 4K at 60 frames per second in 10-bit 42.2 internal is almost mandatory in 2025, and Sony delivers 06/04. Two aspects distinguish its implementation. Full pixel readout, no pixel binning, which means detail. Stays razor sharp and more lines on tight pattern business jackets rarely appear. Heat management. Sony vents the main processor through a graphite sheet layered under the LCD cradle. In repeated tests inside a 78-degree studio, the camera ran 4K 60s log 3 for 52 minutes before a temperature warning, 0632. Past Sony bodies tapped out 20 minutes sooner. Rolling shutter sits around 13 milliseconds. That is not global shutter. Fast, but when panning a Super 35 crop for sports highlight reels, vertical lines stay acceptably upright. Sony adds focus breathing compensation, a feature first seen on the A74. If you use modern Sony lenses, the camera crops ever so slightly during autofocus racks to keep framing tight. 06.59. It is a niche advantage for documentary interviews shot in f1.8 aesthetics. The fully articulating screen flips sideways and forward. Vloggers can monitor framing, but more significant is the screen's improved hinge strength. Older Alpha 4-way hinges sometimes wobbled if you pressed too hard. Sony swapped the internal. Torsion springs and the new hinge locks open with zero give, 725. Battery and recording time. Sony keeps the tried and true NP-FZ100 battery. One pack shoots roughly 600 cred photos or 1 hour of 4K 30p. If you vlog in 4K 60p, expect 50 minutes, which is still ahead of Canon's LP-E6NH runtime. For marathon events, USB-C power delivery now supports 9V3 amp draw. A modern GON power brick can both charge the battery and run the camera, or 7.54. Documentary teams can rig a compact battery bank and shoot until card space ends. Dual card slots support UHS-2 SD or CF Express Type A. Early testers confirm the buy Type A slot sustains 700 megabytes per second when dumping to a laptop, roughly double a fast SD. In practice, that means your offload time after a wedding drops from 20